Online learning continues until January 25th. Elementary schools were set to reopen Monday after an extended break to curb the spread of COVID-19. Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health hopes the extra few weeks will slow the spread. Windsor's had the vaccine for weeks now, but who decides the priority? We break down how each hospital is giving out their shots. Live look now at the city of Windsor tonight, hovering around zero, and it looks like we're entering a bit of a dry spell. Colette Kennedy breaks it all down in her forecast this evening. I'm Chris Ensing, thanks for joining us. Tonight we start with the aftermath of yesterday's riot at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. The condemnation of U.S. President Donald Trump is growing and getting more intense. He's accused of inciting yesterday's mob attack. There are now calls for him to be removed from office, even though he has less than 2 weeks left in his term. CBC's Ellen Morrow has the latest.
Fortress Capitol Hill a day too late. This is the aftermath of yesterday's unprecedented attack on U.S. democracy. Offices ransacked, the seat of American power trashed. Fueled by President Donald Trump's rhetoric and litany of false claims, his supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, an astounding assault that Trump has not strongly condemned. This congresswoman hid for 5 hours, fearing for her life, telling her family goodbye.
I had to turn off the lights and turn off any sound. I was watching the TV on mute, and I just texted them that I love them.
Incoming President Joe Biden issued a scorching rebuke of his former rival this afternoon.
We've had a president who's made his contempt for our democracy, our Constitution, the rule of law clear in everything he has done.
Even some Republicans are now calling for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. That could remove Trump before his term ends.
Not only has the president abdicated his duty to protect the American people and the people's house, he invoked and inflamed passions that only gave fuel to the insurrection that we saw here.
Today, the first cabinet resignation. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao leaving her post because of the violence. Trump ally Senator Lindsey Graham, after years of support, now distancing himself from the president.
The president needs to understand that his actions were the problem, not the solution.
Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is threatening to impeach Trump for a second time.
This is urgent. This is emergency of the highest magnitude.
The president himself has been largely silent. His online posts rife with misinformation about the 2020 election, restricted by social media giants. The president blocked from Facebook until after his term ends in less than 2 weeks. For now, so many difficult questions. How could law enforcement be so overwhelmed in the halls of Congress? What else might happen before Trump leaves? Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, in Windsor-Essex, the health unit says that they have passed the 9,000 case mark for COVID-19, and students will not return to school on Monday. Classes are going to continue online in Windsor-Essex and across southern Ontario. Let's take a look at some of the numbers that they showed today as they'd explained that decision. What you're looking at here are key dates and the 7-day average number for cases that day. Now, these numbers are strictly for school-age children. The first day of school there is September 7th. There was 1 case per day. December 11th, that's when the health unit shut down in-person learning before the holiday break. At that point, 9 kids were testing positive each day. And then as of this morning, it's 15 new cases among school-age children each day. This is another number that Dr. Wajid Ahmed talked about today. There are 500 students in isolation in Windsor-Essex right now after being a close contact of someone who has tested positive for COVID-19. Now, this afternoon, the province decided that no school in southern Ontario would be open for in-person learning on Monday. Dale Molnar now with how families feel about the decision.
Students in both elementary and secondary schools have been learning online since school resumed on Monday. Elementary schools were going to return to in-person learning next Monday, but now will wait until January 25th, the day that high schools were set to resume in-person learning. While it's been tough for some parents, others are relieved.
I agree with that decision because I am not still feel in comfort zone to send my child in in-person class. So I am just keep him the online class till 23rd.
My kids are going to stay in the virtual learning regardless of the extension. It's consistent for right now, while other things are still really inconsistent. So just for, my children's consistency, I'm just going to make that decision.
Child care centers have been open and will remain open. Earlier today, Medical Officer of Health Dr. Wajid Ahmed was prepared to keep the schools closed to in-person learning until the 25th if the province hadn't acted.
But if it's an isolated problem for our community, I will be moving forward with issuing the order tomorrow.
Both the Catholic and the public school boards announced today they would follow Ahmed's direction without waiting for the order. The Catholic board says there are no cases of COVID-19 in any of their schools. They say the online learning is working well.
I have to give kudos to our educators. They've done a tremendous job in being able to pivot from in-person to online learning. They've done a great job in making their lessons engaging and interactive for our students.
Special education students in all elementary schools and high schools have been attending in person, and the Catholic board says that won't change. It's not clear if that's the case at the public board. They will say more about it tomorrow. Meanwhile, the provincial NDP says it's not enough to close the schools. They say the schools need to be made safe to reopen. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
There's frustration over the vaccination rollout in Windsor-Essex as local hospitals defend their decision to make the shots available to senior staff members. CBC's Katerina Georgieva has been on this today. She joins us now live from outside Windsor Regional Hospital. Kat, yesterday we heard about a PR executive getting the shot at Erie Shores. Sparked conversation around all of this. Who exactly is able to get the shot?
Well, Chris, under the phase 1 of the province's vaccination rollout plan, we know that all the shot is available to all healthcare workers at hospitals, and it's all based on priority, though it's not entirely clear the exact order of that priority. But we do know that at the 3 hospitals here in our region, frontline workers, they are front of the list. And then after that, we know that senior management and other positions of leadership, they're also in line. So Erie Shores, the hospital there, they say that all of its frontline workers who wanted the shot, they have gotten the shot, which is why they're moving on to other senior staff. At Hotel Dieu Grace, the shot is available to all employees there, but at this point, only half of them have registered for it. At Windsor Regional Hospital, frontline staff are prioritized, as are nursing and medical leaders. And the CEOs at Hotel Dieu and Windsor Regional, they say that they're waiting for others to get the shot first before they get theirs. And David Mouche says leaders in the hospital are on the front lines. They go to farms, they go to long-term care homes, and he stresses they're critical to the operation of the hospital.
It's not this focus of, well, you got to be standing over a patient 24/7. I have a lot of key leadership individuals that are in contact and are needed for this organization to effectively run, to deal with the issues we're dealing with today, let alone what's on the horizon a month from now. I cannot lose those people. If I lose those people, then the question will be, why didn't you get them vaccinated?
Now, the decisions that some hospitals are making, not everyone's agreeing with. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Chris, a lot of people are frustrated by all of this. We heard yesterday from the union leader who was upset about the PR rep getting the shot before some of his members. Well, today we're also hearing from family members with loved ones in long-term care. Joanne Libert, her dad is in a home that's in outbreak right now. More than 100 people there are dealing with COVID-19. Now, her dad, he wasn't able to get the shot originally because the home was in outbreak. And then the rules changed this week, and then he was told he could get the shot. He was in line to get it today, and then this morning the family found out that he had tested positive for COVID-19, so he's not able to get the shot at this time. And the family is simply devastated that he missed the window by a hair, and his daughter is also frustrated that senior level officials in hospitals are able to get the shot while others who are more vulnerable are still waiting.
It's a bit infuriating, and I think it's showing some deep inequalities in society. I understand there are critical functions that are important in management and executive functions. It is relative to exposure, and it is relative to vulnerability, and they don't compare. I would think further down the line, maybe executives could have access to it, again, depending on the criticality of their functions. But really, what this whole crisis and COVID is revealing are real fissures in society, whereas, some people are clearly more disposable than others.
I should add that the health unit was also asked about this morning, and they said that there are provincial guidelines, there are ethical guidelines, and then there are also individual decisions that need to be made. And Dr. Ahmed said that for him, it's seniors who are the top priority. The health unit was also asked whether or not they themselves have gotten the shot, whether the CEO and whether Dr. Ahmed had received the shot or their leadership team. They said no, they have not. They said that they are right now trying to vaccinate their vaccinators. So those are staff members who are going into long-term care homes to give the shot to residents and staff there. Now, as for when everybody else might be able to get their shot, the health unit says that it is in the process of putting a plan together for mass vaccination when we get an influx of shots, and that's expected in March or potentially April. But the health unit says it's working on the plan now, and they plan on unveiling it before the end of this month. Chris.
Thanks, Kat. CBC's Katerina Georgieva live tonight. And while Windsor has been vaccinating for weeks, Chatham-Kent is still waiting for its first round of the COVID-19 shot to arrive. Now, cases have been rising in the region, 26 more this morning. And today, that region's medical officer of health says that the province is suggesting it could arrive by the end of the month.
The more we can get and the sooner we get it, the happier I'm going to be. I certainly can guarantee that we have our teams in place and ready to go as soon as we get vaccine. It's not going to hang around in the freezer very long at all.
More than a dozen long-term care homes have been in outbreak across Windsor-Essex, but a home in Amherstburg has managed to avoid an outbreak. As CBC's Jennifer Lagrassa reports, while the home may have kept residents disease-free, loved ones feel the rules it had came with a cost.
Okay.
Julie Gibbs' father, 81-year-old William, lives at Richmond Terrace. When William wandered into the hallways during her family's visits earlier in the pandemic, she says staff reprimanded them for chasing after him.
One time my husband went in, the first time he was told just to let him fall because we weren't allowed in the hallways. We had to remain in Dad's room for the duration of our visit.
And she's not the only one who felt that the home went too far. An inspection report shows several instances of residents' rights being violated due to strict policies. In one case, a resident was not allowed to leave the home with someone who had not had a COVID-19 test. The home says it went above and beyond policies and was following directives it felt best protected residents.
We do understand that the directives are put out through the ministry for a reason, and we believe that those are the minimum standard, and that as an organization, we need to do whatever we feel is necessary to keep our staff and residents safe.
When homes say we've gone above and beyond by really shutting out visitors, or we've kind of found excuses to not allow visitors to come visit or essential family caregivers to provide the support and care, we're actually seeing that actually creates more risks.
Some of these risks include increased depression, functional decline, and progressed dementia. Gibbs says her father's dementia may not have gotten so bad so quickly had the pandemic measures at Richmond Terrace been more lenient.
Other family members might think they've done an awesome job, and keeping COVID out was probably the most important thing. For me, I just see people who are merely alive and no longer living. And I know my dad would have wanted more.
But the home says it did all it could to keep their 128 residents socially connected while keeping COVID-19 out. If it had to do it all over again, they say they wouldn't change a thing. Jennifer Lagrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
There's more on that story at our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. There's changes for those that fly into Canada. Anyone over the age of 5 must now show proof that they tested negative for COVID-19, and the test should have been taken within 72 hours of their travel. Getting one is easier said than done. Simon Dingley checks in on people arriving at Toronto's Pearson Airport.
So my name is
Rana Latif flew overnight from Cairo. She took a test before boarding and took another upon landing in Toronto.
I'm going to go home to my husband and I want to make sure that, it's all good. So why not?
This is Ontario's new COVID pilot testing program. International travelers are offered free COVID tests, but getting one before you come home may be another matter.
It was not easy.
Abani Narendra and his girlfriend flew from India to Toronto.
The Canadian government actually looks for a COVID negative report, right? And the Indian government, they do not give any report which says that it's negative. Only if it's positive, they generate a report.
He says he had to make multiple calls and pleaded with the Indian government to get his test results. Eduardo Silva is flying to Vancouver from Sao Paulo, Brazil, but he ran into bureaucratic turbulence trying to determine whether he actually needed it. Silva says he made multiple calls to Air Canada.
She was confused, and at the end she ended the call saying, no, you don't need. The second time, because I was in doubt, so I called, and she's like, no, you really do need.
Silva was worried. He paid 110 Canadian dollars for a test, just in case.
Then I went to check in, and then the check-in, and they said, you don't need a test.
Lorene Smith arrived here from New York. Her husband's negative test came back quickly. She sweated it out for 20 hours, waiting for results, and worried she'd miss a funeral here.
That you have to be within the 72-hour time frame, and whether or not you're going to get your results back is it's horrendous. It's nerve-wracking.
Some Canadians are wintering in Florida. Ottawa's Leslie Brull complains 72 hours isn't enough time. He's called several testing facilities.
And they all tell me you'd be lucky to get it within 5 days.
But at the airport facility in Toronto, results should be posted online within 48 hours. Simon Dingley, CBC News, Toronto.
A live look now at the Ambassador Bridge. You can see a little bit of sunshine, I guess, up in the clouds. Those sunsets getting pushed back might mean that we'll be able to enjoy them and take a look at them when they arrive. Colette Kennedy comes up next here with the full forecast. Joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. Colette, people talk about a dry January for different reasons, but it feels like we're about to enter a stretch like that in the weather cycle too, eh?
Yes, we are. We are looking at our pattern not being very active, Chris. It's funny, I saw Matt Galloway in Twitter saying maybe dry February, just because of the way January's been going so far. So there are people who are pushing it off a little bit. But yes, just if we keep it to the weather, shall we? All right, it is going to be inactive for the next little while here. Much cooler though tonight. Okay, I say much, a little bit cooler tonight. Really, we'll feel it through the Windsor area by tomorrow night. Gradual clearing Friday, so that's nice to see, getting into the sun, especially in those afternoon hours, and a quiet weather pattern, yes. So if you're looking for snow, you're going to have to wait a little bit here. These are our daily average highs and lows, and our temperatures, especially those overnight lows. I mean, yes, it's mild with the daytime highs, but those overnight lows, I mean, we're really doing pretty well there when it could be -8. Not only that, I know it's a young month, a young year, but January right through so far, not just our daytime highs, but those overnight lows, so our daily lows have all been above seasonal, all above average. If you have a look at my legend up here, we get closer to being towards average in those greens as we go towards tomorrow. So I'll fill you in on that here. Current temperature is 0. In Windsor, -1 for Chatham-Kent, and then you factor in that wind flow from the north to northeast. That's kind of enhanced some of the cloud cover that we've seen. You can see nicely, though, that clearing trend. However, even though this is clearing out, we get another little batch of cloud that's going to kind of come in the overnight hours. So tomorrow morning, we'll start off with some cloud. That cloud line is going to be really close there around Chatham-Kent, back towards Leamington. You'll start to clear and into Windsor more and more into the afternoon with more sun, and then plenty of it as we go into Saturday. The temperatures tonight look like this, but it will feel like -8 and much cooler than that, more like -15 a little further east towards London with the clearer skies. Then tomorrow, right around freezing, 0 for our high in the Windsor area. And as we look ahead towards Saturday, there's our sunshine and a nice day in terms of the temperatures there. A little more cloud cover comes in, Chris, on Sunday.
That's perfect. Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
Now, as Washington, D.C. dealt with violent protesting, there were pro-Trump protests here in Canada, one turning violent on the media. We'll have more of that coming up. Back in Washington, D.C. now, dozens of arrests have been made in connection with the riot. Further measures are being taken to secure the city.
D.C. residents should go about living their lives. And if there is a need, as I did over the weekend leading up to this, to ask them to stay away from certain areas, I will do that. I don't have that request at this stage.
The state of emergency that has been put in place, it's been extended until after the Biden inauguration on January 20th. Now, during that riot, pro-Trump supporters gathered in cities across Canada to protest. In Vancouver, there was some violence. There's a person who went after CBC photojournalist Ben Helms, punching him in the face. Now, Helms was not seriously injured.
Bro, what are you recording, huh?
Oh, hey.
Bro, you guys are here to argument? You guys are here to argument?
I think he's crazy. No.
And now it says that the man was upset that members of the media were reporting on the event and taking pictures. He has reported the incident to police. They are investigating. A 10-year-old girl was shamed by a school staff member after wearing a traditional ribbon dress, but now she's pretty proud of what's come from that hurtful experience. Bonnie Allen explains.
The Kulaks from Cody First Nation say they have raised their 7 daughters to be proud of who they are. So 10-year-old Isabella Kulak chose to wear a traditional ribbon skirt to school in the town of Kamsack for what was deemed formal day.
She looked beautiful, and we complimented her, and she walked out so happy. And for her to tell me that night, it completely broke my heart.
At school, an educational assistant made Isabella feel ashamed, saying her outfit didn't match and wasn't appropriate.
That she should dress more like another girl, and pointed the girl out in a store-bought dress and said that's what formal attire looks like.
Isabella's parents contacted school officials.
I've apologized personally to Bella's parents and to Bella herself.
The director of education calls it an example of systemic racism.
We will learn from this, and we will persevere to do a better job for Bella, for Indigenous students and non-Indigenous students.
Then word got out on social media, sparking a wave of support. Indigenous women from afar put on their ribbon skirts in solidarity.
There's thousands of people, and we're encouraging them to show your pride, your resilience, your strength.
For some, the skirt is reserved for ceremonial or sacred purposes. For others, it's an everyday opportunity to feel and show pride.
Isabella Kulak, she brought a huge reminder to all Indigenous women saying, hey, remember, we're still here, and we're not going to let something like this silence us.
When Isabella returned to school this week, others joined her wearing ribbon skirts.
I feel strong.
Her school, where nearly half the students are Indigenous, will hold an annual Ribbon Skirt Day. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Regina.
And that's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We live stream the show on Facebook and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. That's it for us. Have a great night.